Hello, Paras. Thank you so much for finding the time. Paras Loomba is the founder of Global Himalayan Expeditions, but I hope you can tell us some more about yourself and the company that you're representing.
My pleasure. Thanks, Anula. And of course, I'm Paras, and I'm the founder of Global Himalayan Expedition. Short form, they call it GHE. We had started this initiative, or you can say the small firm, in 2013. So almost like decade back. And it's mainly focused on providing energy access, clean energy access to the remote mountainous communities of India. And so it's been almost like 9 years, and here we are, electrifying villages through tourism.
I think that many people in this same tourism world absolutely know you because you've won probably all possible awards, and recently I think a big win was the UN Climate Action Award, right? Um, so how, but can you bring us to the beginnings of the company? Uh, how come you started it? What inspired you to start this great initiative?
So my background, by qualification, I'm an electrical engineer. So I'm not a tour operator. I don't have any expertise in tourism, and tourism just happened to me. In the year 2012, I went to Antarctica on an international Antarctic expedition by Sir Robert Swan, and he had led a group of people. I was part of that team. And when I was in Antarctica, when I came back, the whole journey was very inspirational. I did see some impacts of climate change down south at Antarctica, and I was working on green energy anyways when I was working in India. So when I came back, I thought, why not try and combine and see if I can impact the remote communities in India, because India was still lacking access to energy that time. So can we merge tourism and technology, in this case green technology, and do some kind of an interesting initiative? It were two separate things which I had to combine together, which was a big deal. But that's how we started in 2013. So the inspiration came from Antarctica. The inspiration came from the impact of climate change I saw in Antarctica. And I thought, Antarctica, there is no civilization. You will have penguins or walrus or wildlife biodiversity, but you don't have human from Antarctica. But in the Himalayas, you have remote indigenous communities living. So the impacts of climate change are actually coming in these parts of the world as well. So I thought, and they're migrating as well. So the idea was, can we access these communities, provide them with tangible infrastructure, and then see if we can stop migration and create livelihood opportunities through clean energy and tourism. So that was basically an idea of how we started in 2030, and that was the genesis of our foundation.
But why? I mean, it's clear why you chose this topic because of your background and why tourism. There are different ways of reaching the communities, and tourism is a separate industry with its own, approach. So why have you decided to use tourism to empower the communities?
And that's a wonderful question. But so to answer that, see, if I do any social intervention in these remote communities, there has to be a sustainability to it, right? We use this word quite often, sustainability. What does it actually mean? I may install a solar microgrid for a community which was using initially kerosene oil. So I've done a good job clapping. But if I come there after 5 years, how will they maintain it? Will they maintain it or not? So to make sure that the communities maintain it, there has to be a livelihood opportunities. Now I cannot set up a factory, or I cannot create jobs which are industrial jobs in the mountain areas. And the only way jobs can come into this area, the fastest way is tourism. So the best and fastest ways was try and create tourism-based livelihood opportunities, so that all the interventions which we are doing, be it electrification of a village, of a school, of a health center, they all remain intact, because when people start earning money, not only they will maintain what they get, but they'll also be able to scale it. So that is how tourism was the only and probably the first opportunity which came our way.
And how did people react in the beginnings? Because probably tourism was something new to them at the time.
It's difficult to embrace tourism. I mean, for some people, it's fine because they want to connect with the outside world. And for some people, especially remote communities, which don't see many people every day, it's difficult to connect. But to every opportunity, there are the good side and the bad sides, right? Luckily, we were able to show the positive side of the tourism. These areas didn't have any impact through over tourism. and they needed infrastructure. So when we showed them that if travelers come to your area and they bring in impact, a tangible impact, and an impact which creates a positive future for the generation going forward, you need to embrace it. So I think that's how, I mean, we were able to convince the communities. It wasn't easy, but we have seen that the tourism does have a positive impact more than the negative impact in these areas.
I think that I will have more questions about your interactions with local communities, because it's, I think, an important, very important, and also probably challenging aspect of what you're doing. But maybe before that, if you can also explain to everyone all your key initiatives so everyone understands what exactly you do, what are the impact exhibitions. And I know that you're also doing great job in terms of educational projects. So give us an overview of all the cool initiatives.
So basically, if you ask us, we work in 4 different domains. We started as a company conducting impact expeditions. So when we say expeditions, that doesn't mean we scale a mountain peak like Mount Everest. No, we do expeditions which require people to go into remote areas in the mountains, sometimes cross over 18,000, 19,000 feet passes. But the idea of impact expeditions is to create a positive impact in a community. And that impact has to be tangible impact. It could be providing solar electricity to the village. It could be providing solar electricity to the school and also setting up low power computers. It could also be powering up a healthcare center. So anything which impacts the community, anything which brings in positive change in that area, anything which brings in development change is what the impact expeditions are. Now, the interesting concept of impact expedition is whatever impact we do, the financing is not done through an outside sponsor. The tourism acts as a financing mechanism for this opportunity. Let me give an example. If I have to electrify a village, let's say of 30 households, I would need an X amount of money. And I know there are 20 people, 20, who are interested in going on the expedition because they love Himalayas and they also want to do some kind of really awesome thing on their visit to leave a legacy behind and have a lifelong memory of their visit. So I tell them, hey guys, you want to come to Himalayas, you want to see the beauty of Himalayas, and can you take out 3-4 days to electrify a village? And that sometimes surprises them. They say, oh, how can I electrify a village, right? Now we tell them, okay, so if you're paying X amount of money, can you pay X plus 30% more X? What I mean to say is if you're paying $100 for an expedition, can you pay $130, $30 more? And with that extra dollars, I'm going to use that fund to provide the material for that impact change. So all the travelers, all the 20 travelers actually contribute as part of the expedition fees to the impact infrastructure, which they set up on their own. So when all the money is taken in from the travelers, it concludes their logistic and experience costs plus the cost of the infrastructure, which even they can fundraise. They don't have to put it on their own. They can ask their friends and they can even get someone to sponsor that. And with that money, we buy the material. We ask the community to ship the material to the village. The travelers reach the village and they see the material which they had contributed in front of their eyes. And they are part of the process of setting that whole infrastructure up within a couple of days through help of GHE and their engineers. So in fact, a traveler who has no knowledge in clean energy, maybe a student or could be a financial analyst, for 2 days he becomes a solar engineer trained by us and electrifies the whole village. That is what we call impact expedition, which is financed through tourism and the travelers coming in. That is one project. The second is once these expeditions are conducted in these remote areas, the villages are lit up. We feel that these are really exotic areas. No one has explored them. They're not even on Google Maps. So tomorrow they can be a future destination for travelers to come in, right? So we set up homestays, which is one form of guest house in these villages where where we operate in Ladakh. It used to be part of the Silk Route where the trade used to happen between Mesopotamia or Europe and China. So traders used to go from that area. So it's got wonderful valleys, wonderful villages and old villages, houses which have 10, 15 rooms. They have a lot of rooms which can be used as guest rooms. So we modify their houses in some of the rooms for travelers to stay. And a traveler can just pay $20 per night for a food and dinner. And that is a good income for any family in remote area. And that brings in livelihood. So we create homestays and then we promote these homestays ourselves. as well as on online platforms like booking.com and Airbnb, so that someone like you and me can access that, book it, and go and visit directly these homestays. And the third thing which we have seen is all these projects which we've been doing on solar, on removing kerosene oil. There's a lot of carbon offset which we do. We remove a lot of carbon from the atmosphere. We actually stop the source of carbon consumption. Like if a family gets a solar light or solar electricity, they will not use diesel, they will not use kerosene oil, they will stop using fossil fuels. Now there is a huge amount of carbon exchange market currently. So we try and see whatever projects we do. It could even be putting up smokeless cook stoves for cooking, right? And the amount of carbon removed from the environment can be exchanged for some credit in the market, and that money can be used to build more projects. So we work on carbon offset projects for corporates who may be interested in providing carbon offset credits, so that we can do some kind of impact projects separately than tourism. So impact expeditions, homestays, and carbon offset projects. These are three different verticals in which our company GHE works in.
Wow, that's really impressive. I assume that you've been working on these one by one. So first were the impact exhibitions, and then the other ideas came in, right?
Correct. Correct.
How do you, so many questions here. But also if you can add a little bit about the education projects that you work on, you offer.
So the expedition is, it takes, I would say, at least 8 months to set up an expedition. I mean, a normal tour and travel company would just create a good itinerary, and on that itinerary you will have multiple travelers going back and again and again and again and again, right? It's also a good way because it still brings in livelihood to these communities, right? But the way we approach is, every time we do an expedition, we do not go back to the same area because we have already impacted that area. So every time we need to create a new itinerary, we need to identify new village. Now these villages are not available on Google Maps. How do you identify these villages which do not have access to electricity? So you need to know a local resource, a local person who is a good guide, who knows that area very well. And then we go with that person, physically visit that village, meet the villagers, and understand why they're not using energy access, why they're not having a grid line, and they tell their problems. So we try and convince them that, okay, we can provide you solar electricity, but if you can lend in some hand, I know you cannot put in the money for that, but if you can support in transportation, if you can support in transportation of these material and the guests to the village, host the guest, cultural show for the guests during the day, when during the days they are there. So there has to be some kind of contribution from your end. Also the contribution for maintaining and upkeeping those microgrids once they have been installed. So we need to buy in the community. It cannot be like, we see a village, we parachute into a village and we electrify and we say very nice clapping pictures. No, you identify the village. It takes 6 months. You create an itinerary, then you understand how much cost it will take to electrify a village, then you promote that itinerary with a specific cost. Then the travelers apply on our website, and when the people apply, it's a different thing, right? And they say, we want to talk to you about it. What is this all about, electrifying a village? I'm going to visit Himalayas, I don't want to electrify a village. So we tell them this is the whole journey. And most of the people who were not interested initially, they get interested and they say, we want to do more with you guys. So we find 20 like-minded people. It's not easy that anyone can join an expedition. We make sure we have really good 20 like-minded people, because even if one guy is just come here for enjoying the Himalayas and not doing an impact, then it may create an issue with the group. So we need to have that group with a clear objective and a clear mission. Now, once the village has been electrified, it doesn't stop there. We need to create a sustainability so that we make sure that if anything goes wrong, someone is there to service it. So for every 10 villages we electrify, we also set up a local service center run by a local entrepreneur. We train that person, and if any issue comes in that village, he's the first person to contact that village and replace panels, solar panels, batteries, or LED lights. So that way, it is within the community that one guy is repairing it, one guy is buying it, and we are out of the picture. And to give an example, we have electrified more than 150 villages in the Himalayas right now, 150, and 100 of them in one region called Ladakh. And the villages which we electrify, we normally provide them good enough power, basic lighting, through LED lights and street lighting. We do not give them LED TVs, but 40% of the people who got power from us, and because of the livelihood they were able to make through homestays, now most of them have access to information, and they've bought, invested in television and satellite dish. So if I go back to these villages, I see, oh, you bought a TV. Yes, wonderful. So now that I see that they are more aware of what's happening around the world, because they use the same power we gave them. They bought a TV, they put a TV, now they have access to information. So the communities understand the importance of energy access. They try and build on top of that. And I think for any intervention, uh, there has to be someone to locally manage it, because you just cannot tell the community to own it. You need someone to tell them, right? And they should feel value about it. There have been instances where our grids have failed and we had no idea they failed, because there was no connectivity with that village for almost 6 months, because there's no phone calls I can do there. After 6 months, I got to know that one of the grids have failed and they have come back to using the kerosene oil. That means they come back to the old age again. So we want to make sure that they get addicted to clean energy, they get addicted to light, so that if even for 1 hour the light goes off, they should feel worried and they should immediately get it repaired. So the idea is always, it's a bad analogy, but let me say that, we have, who is that, Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson going to space, but there are villages in the world which don't have access to energy. So we are trying to work on this part of the spectrum of tourism, and they are working on the other part of the spectrum. So that's the difference we bring up here.
Yeah, there are many places without electricity, including also Central Asia, and even I just came back from a beautiful national park in Russia. Also, they are still using wood, just burning wood to get heating, and also, yeah. So many areas in the world very far from flying to the to the moon.
So there are 700 million people, to be precise, 700 million people in this world which do not have access to basic energy. And these 700 people are in the most beautiful tourism areas in the world. So you have 700 different expeditions, 700 million expeditions you can do actually if you want to, right? So that's the idea here.
That's a beautiful approach to it. So hopefully, like I see you're on the mission to
Yeah,
solve
we're
all
trying
this.
it.
This is wonderful. But coming back to the question about communities, because this is, I think, very challenging aspect of all of it. I guess it's not easy to work with the local communities to get them on board, to train them, and then to get addicted, as you said, to the clean energy. So what are some principles when you enter a new village, and how do you start? How do you engage the local community to and so that they can accept the travelers, people who come, and then the whole process starts. So share some tips.
Yeah, I think there are, we follow, I would say, 5 key principles in making sure the community actually understands what we're trying to bring in, and they should also value it. I mean, a clap cannot happen with just one hand. You need both the hands together. So first of all, the first approach is any community which we want to engage. We always try and go with the help of a local leader, someone, a local support who can speak the language, whom they can trust. So if I have to electrify a village which I know is available, is existing in this particular trek route, I will not go alone. I will take a local person with me who can speak the language. And I first tell the person that this is what we're trying to do. Once he's convinced, then he can convince the community, right? So I take the local person with my team. We go in, we mobilize. I mean, the idea is to get everyone out from their houses into a ground, and we'd make them sit down and we say, okay, guys, we need 1 hour from you. We are so and so, and this is the reason we have come here. And first is you need to find the right person, a local resource who understand knowledge to get into the community. Once you're into the community, you need to mobilize them for how many days, hours you may need to make sure that they understand what you're trying to bring in. And you'll see after a few hours, they start opening up and start asking you questions. Why are you doing this? What is your advantage here? Do you have an ulterior motive? Will this, is this bomb? So, all those questions are being asked. And that is where the second thing comes in is you need to demonstrate what you are giving them. For example, I mean, if you like any other person who wants to buy a certain thing, you go into the showroom, right? You want to see a car, you do a test drive. Similarly, we take a solar panel, a battery, and few lights with us. We show the community, this is what we're going to give you. Do you like this? They say, yes, this is interesting. I said, no, this is not a donation. It is not free. You'll have to contribute. May not be in money, but in kinds if you want this. They said, that's fine, sir. We'll go for it. So now we have found a person, we have mobilized the community, we have done a demonstration, we have convinced the community. Now, rather than we pushing the solution into them, they are asking for it. So it's a pull model rather than a push model, right? The third thing is we have to tell them when are we going to come with a group of people to electrify the village, because things can change, and climate change has been one of the biggest reasons everything changes, because 1 month it starts raining, the trek routes get disturbed, the expeditions get cancelled. The community calls us, sir, you were supposed to come in the month of July to electrify us. What happened? I told them, the flights got cancelled, the expedition is cancelled, so we'll come in the next few months. It's difficult to convince if things goes haywire, right? And then that is done once. Then once the community is convinced, we during that convincing, we try and identify a local leader in that community, someone we call a local change maker. When you try to mobilize the community, you will find few people who are very interested in what you're trying to do, right? They will start asking questions and they'll try to support you. And those are the people you want to train for future. And those are the ones who become our local leaders and our entrepreneurs going forward. So in the whole process of meeting the community physically, showing them, you are also able to identify local future leaders. And these future leaders are the one who will make sure that whatever we give to the community, they are the ones who would like to look after it and they would like to run a business around it. So, there are two approaches in this world to benefit the communities. One is an NGO approach. You train them, you give them material, and you stay there for years and years. Our approach is we go in, we train them, but we try to create businesses around it so that it becomes self-sustainable. We pass on the baton to the community and then we move on. We want to leave the community in their own way, the way they want it to be. We don't want to give our own thought process into it, because the idea is they have their own traditions, their own cultures, and they know the best how to use that technology to suit their cultures. So we don't give them internet to access Facebook or Twitter. We just give them basic human right, which is right to electricity, right to clean water. Some people give clean water, healthcare access. So our fundamental is very clear that we give them the basic thing, and they are the ones who will decide what to build on top of it. So that's the approach we do with the communities.
And how I cannot not ask how the COVID crisis impacted the communities. It must be a tough period for you right now.
Yes, so the expeditions have stopped. The last 2 years, including this year, last year, we haven't done an expeditions because the group tours are difficult. We have taken more than 1,500 travelers, 1500, from more than 63 different countries around the world. So most of the people who come on the expeditions are not only Indians, but also people coming from Western countries, US, Europe. Even we had guys coming from South America and some from Africa. And most of the guys who have come into the expeditions, some of them have come to experience the change. Some of them have come to learn this thing and they've gone back and have started their own expedition in their own countries. There was a guy who came from Chile. He said, we have got remote communities in Chile. I'll learn from here and I'll go back. So he's installing microgrids in his own country. We had a person who came from Nepal. He's doing it in Nepal. So in effect, we are trying to create a kind of a chain reaction of change makers, and they go back and do the same thing. Last 2 years, because of no expedition, we haven't been able to do that amount of impact. But luckily, we were able to source some CSR funds, the corporate social responsibility funds. So we were still able to do some ground activities, do some electrification, and we started a new thing of electrifying health centers, because all these areas which are really beautiful, travelers now require safety, right? They are interested in if there's a hospital nearby if anything happens. So it's very important to have good healthcare facilities. So we're trying to improve the healthcare facilities by providing them with energy access and medical equipments in the same villages which we electrified a few years back. Now the same villages feel, hey guys, these guys are not coming with tourists, but at least they are upgrading our health centers. So the trust still remains with them. So now we're currently working on CSR, but our homestays took off this year because in India, the lockdown opened up in June. So we had a lot of domestic tourism coming to our homestays. And there were times when we had more people expected, more than expected. So it was more like overcrowding. It became a Venice. But we were able to manage it because this was all online booking. So we were able to close it. So we are able to see how can extra income also impact community, right? So we need to make sure we create a balance. But at the end of the day, community ownership is good, entrepreneurial is good, but I feel if you do an intervention in a community and you try and promote that community, then you're also responsible for what impact that community gets through tourism. So we have to be very careful in terms of how much you want to promote it, what are the principles you want to set for them. At the same time, not be there throughout because they have their own set of agendas and rules and regulations which the community wants. So a lot of people ask us, why do you bring development to these beautiful areas? Let them remain as it is. Why you're giving them light? They're beautiful. Then our question is, our response to that is, who are we to decide whether they want light or not, right? We just present to them. If they need it, they will ask us. So I think everyone has the right for development. It all depends upon what kind of development you want to give them. So we are just an enabler and a facilitator. The rest automatic follows.
How do you, I understand those who are questioning this, because you're bringing people, foreigners and people from big cities and different set of values to remote villages and people with very different traditions. So how do you balance, or whether you give some code of conducts for the travelers on how to behave, or how to maintain the authenticity and the local traditions with tourist flows?
Yeah, perfect. So there are two things which we do on an expedition. Uh, we launch our expedition at least 8 to 10 months in advance. We select a team 3 months in advance because we need to train the people coming on the expeditions in terms of what they would expect. We also tell the villages at least 3 months in advance that, hey, we're going to electrify a village now. So if I have to electrify a village in September, I would tell the villagers in the month of June that they will get electricity. So they are mentally ready and they are able to, identify resources for them. Secondly, the guidelines, which area they are going. We do multiple webinars for sensitizing our travelers, where they are approaching, what is the history of that area. And because we are also part of the whole expedition, we have team leaders. So when we reach a village, the travelers are already trained, or I would say already we have given them inputs on how to behave. Similarly, even the communities, they are very simple, right? So we make sure that they remain in their own attire as they are. They carry on their own daily. We are not there to judge them. And we tell them, hey, we do not think travelers who are giving you light as gods or as some superior humans. We all are equal. We are here for collaboration. So we make sure that there's an equal status for both the community and the travelers. And it's, there's this SDG goal of equality, which I really like. So we try to create equality. You exchange ideas. Now the language can be very different, but I think two clear hearts, they connect very well. So we have interpreters in a team. So if someone is speaking English, the other guy is speaking in Tibetan or Ladakhi is able to communicate as well. So I think with clear intent, both from the communities and from the tourists, it is a nice interaction. And it's like this. I'll tell you, Anula. If I'm a villager, and a group of travelers come into my house, and they start wiring my walls with wire. They put a bulb holder. They put up a LED light. I sometimes wonder why these guys come all the way from to my village and giving me light in my room. Who is he? Like, is he a god sent person? And then the villager smiles and says, the least I can do is offer him a cup of tea. So the travelers are wiring up the whole house. So the household owner, the leader or the owner of the house, comes with lovely biscuits and tea and offers to the three travelers, and that's how the bonding starts. So you can't control it because it just happens, and that is what I would say the beauty of travel and tourism, right? Isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I'm sure that this must be a very unique moment for everyone when you put light in the room. and changing for everyone, for the travelers as well, and obviously for the local community. But you mentioned that there, even now, when the restrictions were down, and you started even suffering from over tourism, and you mentioned that you manage the bookings online. How does it work? So are you like an agent for the homestays, and then you redistribute them somehow equally, or how does the booking work for you for the homestays?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a lovely question. And so we set up homestays. So first we identify villages which are potential tourism spots. Not every village will be tourist spot. Assuming 80% of the villages are potential touristy spots, we set up homestays. That means we invest in material for these homestays. We provide them mattresses, we provide them with training, hospitality training, we provide them with good photography, we provide them with other materials like cutlery stuff for a traveler who would need. I mean, for us it's very simple thing, right? A traveler needs three things: good food, good place to sleep, and a good place to take his leak, right? So all three things are covered up, he will enjoy his stay, or she will enjoy his stay. So once we have a once we have more than 50, we have 70 homestays, 70, in Ladakh, and most of them are online. Uh, so when a booking comes, we have 3 to 4 days to respond to that booking, because these are remote areas. So first we ask the homestay owner, hey, there's someone who wants to visit your house. 3 people, they're from this part of the country, and they have a kid, and so they want to stay on this night. Are you interested in hosting them, or you are going for some prayer session, or you're going with your family, or you're farming, or you're not interested? So we first ask the host. If they're interested, we take the booking in. And because of the COVID times, we had made sure that after one person visits that village, let's say one family goes to the village, the next booking we take after 2 days, because we would want to sanitize that room, keep it open for a couple of days, and have the next person coming in. This also gives space to the family, the host family, to enjoy the people coming in, and also keep the rooms clean. In terms of do we act as an agent, agent may not be the correct word, because we also implement those homestays, we train the people. Sometimes OTAs, they just find properties and they list. We not only list them, we also do market linkage, we also train them, we design those properties. So somehow we can say we are more like a combination of an agent, an on-ground company, and someone who facilitates which homestay should get the guest house guests now. We keep on distributing them based on who got the first. So at the end of the year, what we would eventually want is we have equal income distribution among all the communities. But there's a catch here. Not everyone treats the traveler in the same way the other one, right? So guest feedback is important to make sure who gets extra guests. So the one who gives good reviews, who does hospitality from his arts, we normally send more people there, or we provide them with some more gifts, like, or could be like a solar water heater. Hey, you've done an amazing job, and the guests wanted to give you a solar water heater. So the others also see that, and they understand hospitality is not about just hosting guests and forgetting it. It's about connecting with the guest as well. So it's an ongoing process, trying to create very awesome life-changing experiences even for the guests going to this remote community. So it's something we're trying to work on still, but we've seen that once the area is, it's Instagram, Facebook, these are great channels to promote any destination. And one a person gets to know about a destination, everyone wants to go there, and that becomes an issue, right? So how do you make sure that you control? And again, you are no one to control the travelers going to that area, right? We try our best, as much we can, with the online bookings, but there are also walk-ins. A lot of people just walk into the village. So we just sensitize those community that if there's anyone coming in, make sure you deal in this way. So for us, before we introduce tourism to the village, it's very important that we train the villagers in terms of what the bad and the good impact of tourism would be, so that they are aware what they're getting into, right? So yeah, there's no Bible on over tourism. It's a very human centric thing, right? Everyone talks about over tourism, but everyone wants to make money at the end of the day, because the industry has been lacking. So how do you keep a balance on that?
Yeah.
So
And how do you, in the fast-paced world where everyone wants to have an access instantly and answer instantly, if you don't respond in 10 minutes, then you're already your rating on Booking.com goes down, and where do you get all these clients who are so environmentally and socially driven?
So it's a long thing. So this is a discussion we keep having with our team members. So every day in the morning we have a team meeting, again virtually, because offices are still not opened up in our country as much they should be. And the first question I get from everyone is, I spoke to 10 guests yesterday. I said, just 10. He said, Paras, it took me the whole day to convince them. They thought that a homestay is a hotel. They wanted a room service. They wanted Wi-Fi. So, and I said, how many did you convert from those 10 guests? I've never heard that any of the guests, there has been certain occasions, but not only did they convert those 10 guests, but they made sure those 10 guests also brought another 10 guests along with them. So it takes a lot of time to talk to them. There's not been a single booking where we have not spoken to the guest and created awareness of where they are going, and that the discussion can range from 15 minutes to 1 hour sometimes. And not every guest is very receptive to understanding the sustainability and the community. They just want to be on that lake side, on the mountain side. And then we can take a call whether to tell the guest. So we make sure that we tell the guest what are you expecting and where you're going are totally different. So we suggest you book a resort for yourself. These are a few resorts near the area. Now the guests feel, hey, we are being very transparent, so they take a call. But we try and avoid any guest who is not in the mood of, respecting the area, the community they're going in. So that's the reason we have to talk to almost, and it's not a feasible business model for us, but at least this will help us create an idea of what kind of target audience we want. So in future, we have those references and we can use those references and create certain guidelines where we don't need to have manual interventions and make this more automated going forward.
But do you think that people are now, or like your customers, they are, but travelers willing to pay more to create more impact?
Absolutely, 200%. Post COVID, the travelers have a different mindset altogether. Totally. They want offbeat areas. They want to go away from the crowd. They want to live life now. The life has become so unpredictable, Anula. No one has an idea what comes tomorrow. They want to enjoy when they go out. There have been issues for sure that they don't get the best of the bed to sleep on. They don't get the best of the tea or the breakfast. But at the end of the day, the experience is like sky, astronomy in the night. So we have these amazing homestays, which has astrotourism. So we have trained the local women of the village who take out a telescope every night and show the travelers Jupiter, Saturn, the planets of the sky. So you may have had bad food in dinner, but because you saw a Saturn or a Jupiter or a moon, you feel very happy. So that's the experiences we're trying to do. And everyone is concerned about sustain. They want to know whether the bed was clean. They want to know whether the water is coming is right. They want to make sure that they do not throw away plastic. So I won't say 100%, but they do talk about it and they embrace it. So I think there is a change in the mindset of travelers, at least in India, which I've seen. I'm not sure about international because we still didn't have international travelers coming in.
I think that if you say that it's about even like domestic travelers changing mindset, I think the same goes in other countries as well, hopefully. But this is great. And all these like everything that you bring to homestays, is it part of the fee also? Is it included in the price of the homestay, or this is where you find some funding separately to set up a homestay?
To set up a homestays, we do a combination of CSR funding and the profits we have made through expeditions earlier, right? So for an expedition, which we charge, let's say $100, 60 maybe the cost of logistics, $20 maybe cost of the grid material or the infrastructure, and the last $20, $5 maybe tax. The $15 is what we earn. It could be 20 or $15 based on how big the group is, how small the village is. And we don't have a big team. I mean, I'm a fan of a lean company, lean organization, small people like a family. I'm not here to make a $1 billion company. I'm here to impact billion lives. Let me put it that way. So lean company, nothing. We were strong, touch wood. We were strong in COVID. We had no financial issues. We were able to switch from tourism to development and now back into tourism now. And what we have seen is that, the CSR can play a big role in creating infrastructure which can later be used by communities for tourism. So we invest in some of the homestays which we feel is important. Some of the homestays which can get CSR funding, we take that as well. So all in all, we try whatever sources we can find. And we also make sure that even the homestay owners, they contribute financially. For example, if stuff would cost, let's say $1,000, the material, I would want the homestay owner to at least put $100, $200 just to make sure that they feel value about the whole thing. And that money which they provide to us is used for our salary sometimes, or used for training those homestay owners later on. So we try and keep revolving those money here and there. That's the idea.
All right, that makes sense. And you mentioned that you have a small team. You wouldn't be able to do everything that you manage and achieve without having a good team. And I think having the right people on your side is one of the big challenges for everyone, and finding the right people. What is the secret to finding and building a strong team?
I've been inspired. My father was in Indian Army. He was an army officer, and I've played sports in my life, and I've been with adventure tourism and whatever I can. So I think one thing which is important is that whenever you select the team members or the kind of team members I have, they all have diverse thought process. So the best team comes when you have diverse viewpoints. If you take the same kind of people who will say yes to whatever you say, it's not the right team. I want people who want to confront me, they want to debate me, and that's where you get the best product. So diversity is strength in our team. And we feel that we are on a single mission. As they say, teamwork is dream work. So everyone here is motivated by the underlying layer that we may be a very small company in India, around the world, but the kind of impact we have been able to bring in and the kind of leadership we have shown on actually showcasing how do you actually mitigate climate change through tourism. It's something we have done practically on ground. That is something which inspires everyone. I'm the oldest member in the team. I'm 35, 36, right? So think of it, there are crazy young guys who want to make a difference to the world, and they're not glued to Netflix or Facebook or anything. Well, they do that, but they also like working with the communities, because I think slowly and steadily, as the world is getting more digital, with I and you are not having a face-to-face talk, but a virtual talk. The lesser travel can have serious impact on the future generation as well. So it's very important they go onto the ground, understand what real cultures were, what real sustainable lifestyles were, and try and get them back into the whatever they do. So it's very important to stay grounded. So yeah, for us, diverse team members, members with a mission, and members who are young, we really embrace that. Yeah.
Yes, I'm feeling like the new generation that try to surround myself with young people as well, because they bring new perspectives, and that's very, very important, not to get stuck with our thinking. Um, so I have a few last couple of questions.
Please.
Um, I'm extremely inspired by everything that you've said and have achieved so far. What has COVID crisis taught you, and how do you see sustainable tourism in post-COVID era, let's say?
That's a challenging question, because we are still somewhere in the COVID era right now. COVID has hit India twice, last year as well as this year, massively this year in the month of May and April. What we have learned from this times of COVID is future is very, very unknown, but it is not gloomy. There's always a bright side on the other side of the chapter. It has taught us to be resilient and be patient enough. It has also taught us to enjoy those smallest things in life which we would ignore and we thought it had no importance. And that is what we are trying to inculcate into whatever travel itineraries or travel products we are trying to build in. The real human connect, which was lost initially. So I think for us, it's very important that we embrace every day as it comes in, because everyone has had losses this time of COVID, right? Near and dear ones you have lost. And no one expected that to happen. And a lot of companies have shut down, especially tourism. We have seen that as well. Luckily, we were able to see that, survive that, and actually build during the COVID times. So I think it's taught us to become more robust as a human race, more resilient, and come out winning. There have been very heroical stories, a lot of heroes coming out of these COVID times. Post COVID, I think the world will be more calmer, more equitable, and more resilient. And in terms of travel fraternity, it will be more closer when it comes to embracing the issues of climate change and how one can support each other. Community tourism will be a big thing going forward, and travel, point and shoot travel, will be replaced by experiential travel much more now. And I think lastly, the generation X, Z, the millennials, whatever you want to call them, they will lead the way in terms of transforming the world going forward. I think the next 5 years is going to be very crucial, how things will evolve into. I had a lovely daughter last year. She is 1 year old, and she hasn't seen national parks. She hasn't been outside, and I wonder, yeah, you can't enjoy the nature as a human in this planet Earth. It's question mark on us. What do you want our future generations to see? And I'm not that old as well. I'm 35, 36. So I assume that there is enough energy left within us. And if we can make a small impact in the Himalayas, I think we can do it in most of the parts of the world. We just need to take inspiration from each other. So yeah, we are a very open source company. If anyone wants to collaborate, if there are areas without electricity, we're happy to do impact there. We're happy to share our designs of solar designs and certain things which you don't need to be an engineer to make things happen. And I didn't need to become a tourism expert to do expeditions, right? It happened to us. It will happen to anyone. So yeah, I hope I made any sense of that.
This is absolutely inspiring, and it's great that you are so open and ready to support others. So the last question for today is, what is your advice for those tour operators or those who are starting a tour company, but they would like to do some good? So what would be your advice, how to do good in the travel industry?
The first most thing is, we talk a lot about sustainability. It's an overused term, I would say, but you need to understand what that is. All our expeditions are climate positive. I'm just giving my reference. If a traveler footprint is, let's say, 2.4 tons of CO2 on an expedition, when he comes on the expedition and goes back, if he comes from New York, he comes on an expedition, spend 20 days with us and goes back. Let's say it's got 3 tons of solar carbon footprint. But on the expeditions, the amount of solar energy he provides to the communities, the amount of kerosene he mitigates, he's able to do that because of his physically present there. It's more than the footprint. So it becomes a climate positive thing for him. What I'm trying to come to is, this is technical, right? Climate positive, carbon and all that. I think it's very important that if we can have an impact or a community immersion in all your trips, I mean, even in luxury tourism, if all the tour operators can at least embrace few points of sustainability, like, avoid plastics, or try and use an electric vehicle, try do more trekking than going forward in vehicles. uh, Planting trees is good. Try to stay in homestays, try to have food from greenhouses. There are many other things that people are talking about. I've seen so many webinars, so much of information flowing around. Just pick up one point, put it into your itinerary and go with that. You don't need to put extra cost. People will pay for it. Tourists will love it. I mean, I've had tourists pay 30% more than they were actually paying, just because they were getting a good community experience, just because they felt what they were doing was good. That feeling has to be very good for a traveler. It should not be carrying guilt with him. So I think just try and experiment, no harm. We've anyways gone through the worst of the times in our lives. So when we come back, let's try and come with a change and try to embrace that the world is a better place, that travelers are also educated. They want to do something more if you want to give them some more. So yeah, I mean, I'm very young at tourism, travel and tourism, and I can't preach, but I think we just go with the gut instinct. I feel, yeah, things will happen if you want to make it happen.
I think that's a great ending to your story and to our conversation. Thank you very much. It's been an hour of inspiring thoughts, and it was lovely chatting to you. So hopefully I can join one of the expeditions
Oh, you,
sometime
man.
in the future. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Nulla. Thank you.